10, 12 years ago, this thing called growth and product-led growth started becoming a trend in the industry. It's about how do you build the best, most valuable product that you can build for customers. And the way you figure out how to do that is by using data and all the analysis that can go into figuring out where people are getting value in your product, where they're getting stuck, and where it can be improved. My name is Ken Rudin, and I have been involved in the field of product-led growth now for about 12 years or so. I was one of the early members of Facebook's growth team. And after that, I left Facebook to go to Google. I led this global growth team that worked with all the different Google products trying to drive product-led growth. Product-led growth, despite its name, isn't a product strategy. It's a whole company strategy. And the real focus is on how you make sure that your product is the best sales and marketing tool that you have for acquiring customers, for activating them once they're in the product, and getting them to be actually paying customers, keeping them engaged and retained as customers. The traditional way we've always looked at product and product development in the tech industry in particular is we create a first version of a product, and then the next version is always about more features. More features and more features and more features. We build it, we launch it, we build it, we launch it. We need to start thinking about landings as well. We can't just launch a feature, we need to make sure it lands with the customer, meaning the customer is actually getting as much value as possible from that feature. So if we use the example of a pocket knife, with the launch and continually adding new functionalities mindset, if you have a pocket knife, the next thing you're going to do is add more and more features to that pocket knife, and you pretty soon end up with a very large Swiss Army knife. You have to create some new features, of course, as your product evolves, but you need to take some resources and focus on features you've already launched. How do we make sure they land? So using that pocket knife example again, given that the main function is the main blade, looking at how to make it land better is, what if we make it just easier to hold? What if we find ways to make it so much easier to open the blade? And what if we find ways to make it safer to close so you don't cut your fingers off? You'll often find that iteration on it and focusing on the landing gets you much more value from the customer and gives more value to the customer than adding all these other ancillary features which they're not likely to use nearly as much. The overall focus is just how do you make this the simplest product to use, the most engaging product to use, something where they will be successful using it on their own. You can always make sure that there is more within the product to help guide the customer more quickly to getting value. If you look at one of the most traditional and oldest industries out there, car manufacturing and car sales, the traditional way that a customer would go buy a car is to go to the dealer, and their choice was what's on the lot. And the way they had to buy it was talk to a salesperson, where if you end up talking to them for more than 10 minutes, you end up feeling like you're being scammed. It's just not a great experience overall. But even that industry has learned to be more product-led growth. They've learned how to remove a lot of the friction. So if you were to go to, for example, the Tesla website right now, you're not limited to what's on a lot somewhere. You design your own car. You don't have to negotiate with someone on the price. They tell you exactly what the price is and when they can have it built for you. And they'll even go so far in many cases as to deliver it to your front door. So if an old, established, set in its ways industries like car sales can become more product-led and more self-service than any industry can. There are a lot of benefits from the product-led growth strategy. The first one is that it significantly lowers your customer acquisition cost because it creates a scalable way for users to try out the product on their own through either a freemium offering or a free trial, where they can try it on their own without needing to reach out and use up the resources you have in customer support or in sales. A second really important impact is that it accelerates sales cycles. When a salesperson does talk to prospects, that prospect has already experienced the value of the product. They already understand what it's about and what its differentiators are, because you've built a self-service free trial for them or freemium product for them to introduce them to the product. So their first discussions with a salesperson aren't about, tell me what your product does and why it's different. They already know that. They're already farther along in the sales cycle. For the sales rep, the questions they'll get is less about, tell me about your product, and more about, I have this specific use case. Are you able to handle it? So because of that, the sales cycles tend to be much, much shorter. A third benefit that you get is because there's this focus on building a self-service product, meaning you remove any of the friction in using the product. It improves the overall user experience because you're focused on making the product self-service so that it is as easy to use as possible, that any support they need when they're using it is built into the product, and you're making sure that you're guiding them to successful outcomes and avoiding them getting stuck in any corners where they're frustrated. That involves the entire customer journey, from before they become a customer and they want to experience it, to enabling them to often purchase online and reducing any friction there, to how do we make sure that they are aware of all the valuable features and making it as engaging and as simple to use those features, to even subsequently, and then how do we sell them potentially on additional products or services or features that we may have. So it's the entire customer journey is positively impacted by a product-led growth strategy.